During the American History and Culture class, we explore how the concept of race, class, and gender changed over the years. It will be illustrated in this presentation some aspects that contribute to the development of American history and culture. It is crucial to analyze race, class, and gender in order to understand American historically and culturally. The first theme it will be explored in this presentation is race. Beginning in the 1600s, slavery became a huge aspect of American history, which wounded the African American race forever. Slavery was based on racism, which implies that a race is inferior or superior to another race. Slavery definitely built the concept of racism that is seen today in American society. During slavery, African Americans were tortured and had no right to freedom. They were treated like animals by the whites. The History.com website gives an overview of slavery in America. According to the website, slavery in America began when the first African slaves were brought to the North American colony of Jamestown, Virginia in 1619 to aid in the production of such lucrative crops as tobacco. Slavery was practiced throughout the American colonies in the 17th and 18th centuries, and African American slaves helped build the economic foundation of the new nation. Moreover, the website History.com explains how the slaves were treated by the slaveholders. Slave owners sought to make their slaves completely dependent on them, and a system of restrictive codes governed life among slaves. They were prohibited from learning to read and write, and their behavior and movement was restricted. Many masters took sexual liberties with slave women and rewarded obedient slaves' behavior with favors, while rebellious slaves were brutally punished. A strict hierarchy among slaves, from privileged house slaves and skilled artisans down to lowly field hands, helped keep them divided and less likely to organize against their masters. Slave marriage had no legal basis, but slaves did marry and raise large families. Most slave owners encouraged this practice, but nonetheless did not hesitate to divide slaves' families by sale or removal. A main document that realistically illustrates the horror of slavery is Alexander Falconbridge's An Account of the Slave Trade. The piece was written in 1788 by Alexander Falconbridge, who was a surgeon that traveled in slave ships in the period of 1780 and 1787. Alexander Falconbridge's text was explored in the website pbs.org, which depicts the inhuman condition of the slave ships. Falconbridge said, but the excessive heat was not the only thing that rendered their situation intolerable. The deck that is in the floor of the rooms was so covered with the blood and mucus which had proceeded from them in consequence of the flux, that it resembled a slaughterhouse. It is not in the power of the human imagination to picture a situation more dreadful or disgusting. Number of the slaves having fainted, they were carried upon deck, where several of them died, and the rest with great difficulty was restored. It had nearly proved fatal to me also. The climate was so warm to admit the wearing of any clothing but a shirt that I had pulled off before I went down. Another document that realistically shows the atrocities lived by the slaves is the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. The text was written in the 1800s by Frederick Douglass, who was a slave that was able to escape from the slaveholder. The website docsouth.unc.edu explores Douglass' text. It will be mentioned a passage which Douglass described one of his slaveholders. Douglass said, Mr. Plummer was a miserable drunkard, a profane sweater, and a savage monster. He always went armed with a cow skin and a half cudgel. I have known him to cut and slash the woman's head so horribly that even master would be enraged at his cruelty, and would threaten to whip him if he did not mind himself. Master, however, was not a human slaveholder. It required extraordinary barbarity on the part of an overseer to affect him. He was a cruel man, hardened by a long life of slaveholding. He would at times seem to take great pleasure in whip a slave. Falconbridge and Douglass' text clearly shows the atrocities lived by the African American during the slavery time. Racism was predominant at the time and is definitely a massive part of American history. After many years of fighting against slavery, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery in the United States. It was passed by Congress on January 31, 1865, and was ratified on December 6, 1865. According to the website loc.gov, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution declared that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime wherefore the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. The 13th Amendment was a huge accomplishment against racism in the United States. The amendment definitely changed the course of American history. It gave back the so-deserved dignity and freedom to all the African Americans. Today, African Americans have the exactly same rights as whites because of the brave abolitionists who fought against racism in the United States. The second topic that will be covered in this presentation is class. I will be focusing on class inequality, which can be seen throughout American history. The United States has always been known as the land of opportunities where class mobility is possible. This is so-called the American dream. But there are many periods throughout American history that shows that class mobility was literally just a dream. The Great Depression that occurs in the 1920s is an excellent period to analyze class inequality in American history. The website digitalhistory.uh.edu gives an overview of the Great Depression. The Great Depression was deeper and more protracted in the United States than in other industrialized countries. The unemployment rate rose higher and remained higher longer than in any other Western country. The stock market crash of October 1929 brought the economic prosperity of the 1920s to a symbolic end. For the next 10 years, the United States was mired in a deep economic depression. By 1933, unemployment had soared to 25%, up from 3.2% in 1929. Industrial production declined by 50%, international trade plunged 30%, and investments fell 98%. The Great Depression was a period of poverty and despair. The working class has no jobs and no means to support the families. A great way to analyze this period is through the work of Walker Evans, who was an American photographer that illustrated the Great Depression throughout pictures. In this image, the photograph of Ellie Mae Burroughs is one of Evans' photographs that became the symbol of Great Depression. Evans' images clearly illustrate the suffering and misery lived by the people during the Great Depression. Another great work that explores the Great Depression is the work of Studs Terkel, who is a reporter from Chicago that interviewed people who lived during the Great Depression. The website thisamericanlife.org explores the recordings done by Studs Terkel. The voice that will be heard is from Elsa Pumpsel, who was a school teacher during the Great Depression.
And so the Depression was a way of life to me. I mean, consider that from the time I was 20 to the time I was 30, I lived in a depression-oriented universe, and I thought unconsciously that that was the way it was going to be forever and ever and ever. That people would have trouble getting jobs, that they would be living in fear of losing their jobs. You know, that fear of losing their jobs. During the Depression, when you were poor, you weren't looking around and saying, here's a society in which everybody has something except me, and by God, I'm going to get some. I mean, I can't blame people for feeling, they read the papers and they watch television and everybody is so rich and has everything. Why not me? You see, that was the difference in the Depression. It wasn't only not me, but it was not you, and it was not my friends and everybody else.
Moreover, the recorder shows the housing situation at that time.
Kids, all of you get in the car. I want to take you and show you something. And on the way over there, he talked about how rough life had been for us. And he said, if you think it's been rough for us, he said, I want you to see people that really had it rough. And he took us over, this was in Oklahoma City, and he took us to one of the Hoovervilles. And that was the most incredible thing. Here were all these people living in old, rusted-out car bodies. I mean, that was their home. There were people living in shacks made out of orange crates. One family with a whole lot of kids were living in a piano box. And here, this wasn't just a little section. This was an area maybe 10 miles wide and 10 miles long.
In my opinion, a passage that clearly states class inequality is, they read the papers and watch television and everybody's so rich and have everything. Why not me? That was the difference during the Depression. It was not only not me, but it was not you, was not my friends and everybody else. Today, class inequality remains a huge issue in the United States, and there are many movements that fight against it. A great example is the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement, originally initiated by a call from adbusters to occupy Wall Street, was inspired by several international protests, most notably the Arab Spring protests. Thousands answered the call and arrived in Zuccotti Park at the heart of New York City financial district to protest the damaging influence of corporations on politics as well as social and economic inequality. Hundreds stayed every night for 2 months and created an encampment in the park, a model that was adopted by people all over the country as the movement spread to well over 500 cities. Even though the movement against class inequality brings awareness to the population, in a society that the rich get richer and the poor gets poor, we ask ourselves, if class equality will ever be achieved. In the third and last part of this presentation, I will be covering the topic gender. I will be focusing on the gays and lesbian fight for gender equality in the United States. In the 1960s, New York law prohibited homosexuality in public. The gay movement began on June 28, 1969 in the Greenwich Village, New York. In front of the Stonewall Inn, a small group of gays began to protest against the police. This event contributed to the gay liberation movement and the current fight for gays and lesbians' rights in America. In 1970, 1 year after the Stonewall riots event, the Christopher Street Gay Liberation Day Parade occurred. This image shows Donna Gottschalk holding a poster that says, "I am your worst fear, I am your best fantasy." This image became a symbol of the Christopher Street Gay Liberation Day Parade. In my opinion, this image shows the society that they are living in, a society full of stereotyping and hypocrisy. The website nydailynews.com explores the gay rights movement in New York City. So this image showed the Gay Liberation Parade in 1970. Some 35 members of Gay Activist Alliance and the Gay Liberation Front paraded through Times Square in New York City on August 31st, 1970. They marched to Greenwich Village, where a demonstration took place outside the Women's House of Detention. In ensuing Rooks, 7 cops were hurt. Another image of the parade shows that it was somehow chaotic. 18 people were arrested during the 1970 rally. Here, demonstrators fled the parade scene after the procession turned violent. The march, which marked the 1-year anniversary since the original riots at Stonewall Inn, stretched on for more than 50 city blocks. The next source I will talk about is the Dicks on Bikes exhibit tour with Glenn McHughney. It's a video from YouTube that tells the story of the Dicks on Bikes, which is a lesbian motorcycle club. According to McHughney, in 1973 was the first time a woman was seen in a gay parade riding a motorcycle. In San Francisco in 1977, Dicks on Bikes became official. Many lesbians gathered at the front of gay parade riding their motorcycles. Since 1977, every year, these lesbians on a motorcycle gather in front of the parade. According to McHughney, many other motorcycle clubs and groups joined them. Therefore, now it is called Dicks on Bike and San Francisco Women's Motorcycle Contingent. The main goal accomplished by the gay community is the same-sex marriage. Today, gays and lesbian couples have the right to marry. According to the website CNN.com, the states that banned the same-sex marriage are Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Michigan, Mississippi, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, South Dakota, and Tennessee. All the other states, lesbians and gays have the right to marry. In conclusion, America accomplished many milestones in the fight to become an equal nation. But we still have a lot more to do in order to become a country where inequality is not an issue. Therefore, we all should respect any human being, regardless of their race, class, or gender. My name is Juliana Constant, and thanks for watching my presentation.
Rather than fight and break humans to the had their rights stolen. I might not be the same, but that's not important. No freedom till we're equal. Damn right I support it.